Okay, hey everybody, welcome to this case study interview and like a reflection on one of my beautiful author Rachel Pope's journey on how she was able to finally package her message and bring her book out. We launched her book Gifts from Grief last month, right? Last month, yes, in June. Seems like a long time ago. But let's welcome Rachel. Rachel, welcome so much.
Hi Shilpa. Hi everyone.
Hello. And would you like to tell us a little bit about your work and how this all began? Actually, your
Yeah,
story.
yeah. So I'd been journaling for quite some time. I knew that I had a book in me, probably going back 2-3 years ago now. But it wasn't until I started journaling myself and started a community online titled Gifts from Grief, which is the
Mm,
title of my book.
yeah.
Um, and when I started getting some feedback from that community, positive feedback, that's when your Facebook ad popped up, and I knew it wasn't something that I could do on my own. I'd never written anything before.
Mm,
Um, the task seemed well and truly overwhelming for me at the time. I had no idea where to start. So, yeah, fast forward to having a great chat to you, and I just got so much clarity after that. That yeah, this is it. We can do this, and
yeah.
that's when we began.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you were one of these, one of those very quick decision makers. You were, I think, in your heart you had already decided, I'm going to write a book, and the conversation was just like a verification of, like, just sounding board, sounding your ideas, and me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you had
Yeah,
already.
I guess I had made that decision for sure. You're right there, but I didn't know what it looked like. I
Yeah.
didn't know whether it was going to be a story, whether it had pictures. It was only from developing my community online on Facebook and Instagram that I started to develop a style, and with quotes and things, that I was getting a lot of feedback there, that it started to evolve more into a book of that was going to include the stories. But then it quickly developed, with working with you when we sort of did our blueprint, it quickly developed into something much more and different to what I had anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's what, like, when we do the blueprint, it just becomes tangible. It's like, okay, now I can visualize it. I can see what it's going to be like.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, and also once you've done that, that first step, having a beginning, a middle, and an end kind of mapped out for you, made the task less overwhelming for sure.
Glad to hear that. So, Rachel, actually, can you share with us a bit of your story so people just know the context? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so in 2012, I was widowed. My husband was 47, Ray, and he died from bowel cancer, age 47, and it was a full circle grief journey for me, because 25 years earlier I had lost my dad when I was 17 to the same cancer and at the same age. In the middle of all that, we'd also lost my eldest brother in a car accident. So, going through just the most painful, traumatic, devastating experience with my husband and having two small children, it wasn't until much, much later, 3-5 years later, that through the grieving process, that I realised that I hadn't dealt with a lot of grief from losing my dad as well, and my brother, and that brought it all to the surface. So I went looking for resources. I went, trying to find some help and information on grief and what I was feeling. And, there's an expectation that we, are meant to have moved on or get over something. And I wasn't feeling that way. But I was feeling very hopeful and positive for my kids and for our future.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything that suited what I wanted to hear. There was a lot of clinical books out there on grief and the 9 stages, etc., 5 stages.
Mhm.
And and what I found for me was that there aren't any stages, that those stages can resurface much, much later. And they're all mixed up and jumbled and in any order.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I read a quote on, if you can't find what you want on the shelf, then write it yourself.
Yeah. Oh God,
We did.
You totally did that, because, and the thing that you said about the expectation from society to have moved on is magnified when you're when you get back into another relationship. Because,
Yes.
it's like, okay, now you just forget that person with whom you've created 2 children and just behave as if nothing ever happened. It's not,
Yes, and it's something that I quickly found with my community too, of people feeling experiencing loss on so many different levels, and not just talking about loss of a loved one, but just loss of a business or divorce or financial loss. There's still grief comes in many forms, and with the loss of a loved one, it was something definitely that I quickly found was taboo to talk about, that people didn't want to talk about it for fear of not knowing what to say, fear of not knowing how to help, fear of bringing up something for you.
Yeah.
But my belief is, and what I hope to teach people and inspire, is that the best way to honour somebody and that part of your life is to talk about them.
Absolutely.
While still, living a life now with joy and love and happiness, that it's okay to honour both.
Yeah. It's funny, right? Like dinosaurs, we proudly talk about dinosaurs, right? They're extinct. But then someone who was so meaningful to our life, we just want to move on and make them a thing of the past as if they never. Yeah. But thank you for sharing what you did and just the perspective that you brought in here right now, because I talk a lot about authority elevator, and it is through your book. Like, the whole coaching consulting industry lives in such a typical hierarchical mindset that I need to first have 10 paid clients. I need to have 10 clients, then, 100 coaching sessions. Then I need to do free speaking gigs. Then I need to do paid speaking gigs. Only then can I write a book. Like, I need to meet all these social norms before I can write a book, But what I say is just tip this equation on its head and start there. Like, just own your authority and say, well, I'm disrupting the rules and I'm giving you a brand new permission. That's what you have done for anyone dealing with grief, right? Like, it's like you have given them the permission to never move on and still move on, like a very, yeah. So, I want to take a step back and just recall, where were you, or like, what did you set out to achieve, or what did you want when you got on a chat with me?
I guess, like you said, that verification that it was something that I could do, that there was enough material there. That was a fear, a block of mine, was that I didn't have enough to fill a whole book. And so that verification that I knew that it was something that was needed. I did have that belief that it would help people. And I guess for me, just not having ever written anything before was just establishing that belief that it was possible and that it would be good enough. And you quickly, you're so good at encouraging and quickly, dismissing those ideas that there's so many books out there, and everyone has a place somewhere for people, and the people who need it will pick it up. So, once I overcame that and knew that we could get started, then, that's where it began.
Yeah, there was something beautiful in my mind just now, but I just got, I flowed in your emotion just now. But what was it? I want to ask you something. Yeah, like, journaling and not having enough content. So this is something like I hear all the time, like 100% of the people who want to write a book or even their second book or third book, they think, do I have enough content?
Mm.
That's all you're looking at in the beginning, right? Like, do I have enough content? But then as you just start taking the steps and you just commit to traveling the journey, by the end you realize, oh my God, it was so much more than a whole content scenario. It was so much more than just packaging content. It's about,
Yes.
packaging your story, your vulnerabilities, uh, adding meaning to others and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how was journaling? What was the difference in, like, or how did you experience our process different from journaling?
I think journaling's just, it's that just erratic and just you getting your thoughts out and things. So there's no kind of structure to journaling, and that's why it's a very healthy thing to do, to get those thoughts out and onto paper and not hold on to things or stay stuck. And
Yeah.
it's, it's definitely you.
Possible. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, and therapeutic and things, but and also in blog posts and posts that I was using on Facebook and Instagram, they were short and just snippets. So
Yeah.
the difference in that is being able to string it all together into a package, which I had no idea about structure and things like that. And so it was such a great learning curve for me to be able to put down a structure and then use all those snippets and use the journaling and use all my stories that I had already put down, but putting them into place and where they were needed in each topic and each chapter, for them to find their place. And we did that, all throughout. I would say to you, oh, I've got this great post on this, and I was able to then just fill that out. Or I had journaled on something before and I was able to beef that up and fill it out for a chapter. Mm.
Yeah, true. And in terms of like your reality then, in terms of your business or consultancy, what you wanted to set up, where were you at?
So really the book was the starting point for me to create the business around that. I had done a few speaking engagements and telling my story. And then when I, realised that it was something that was needed and that I could help people, then I then, wanted to use the book first as a platform to get my message out there and then build my business around that. So I know for other people working with you, it's the other way around, where they have an existing business and they they get set about writing their book to raise their profile or to give them some credibility in their industry. So for me, the book was it was just something that I needed to get out for me to start moving forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
And like just the thing that you said about other people who first have a business and then they write a book, I would say you did it right the first time. because again, all those coaches, they are the ones who have followed the norm up until now. They're like, okay, first I need to start coaching and I need to coach and practice and have 100 hours, then 200 hours. So they're just kind of setting, what can I say, imposing rules upon rules on themselves before they can give themselves the permission to write a book. While in your case, you've already set the foundations and you're like, this is my story, this is my message. This is the structure I believe in, like, gifts from grief. So that's, you've positioned yourself and now you're building your business on that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So, were you saying something?
Just to add in that process that, what was most surprising was the translation and the recording interviews. Because for me, obviously, it's a topic that's very hard to talk about. It was something that I knew was going to bring up a lot of emotion, and for us, it did take a bit longer than I had anticipated, because I had 3 or 4 weeks where I'd get a lot of content out and down, and then there was 2 or 3 weeks where I just needed to step away and breathe and have that time. And so you making that also, making that flow and working with within my emotional constraints and things that I could cope with was just such a wonderful thing, because it allowed, rather than trying to push myself and push out something that wasn't
It wouldn't flow, if we did it
wouldn't have
that way.
flowed. Yeah, so we had that time, and the transcribing interviews were just so wonderful, so much easier for me to be able to talk for half an hour than to sit down and have that daunting process of I need to write this topic out. So that's definitely something that I hadn't seen offered before in other when I was looking for a coach. Yeah.
Sure. And I'm so glad that helped. This actually came about. It was like me creating this service on the spot for one of my previous clients before you, Stephanie Altus. She wrote her book called My Faded Uniform, and she also had what can I say, very long tryst with PTSD. And that's why, like, every time she started writing, she would either just go off track, like, in journaling mode, which would then take her off structure. And that's where we realized, okay, we have to do something differently. And so what we did together was basically, I call it write a book without writing a word, where, and I'm going to be honest, it's not literally that you're not writing a word. You are typing out snippets or bullet points of structure, but then what you do is you and I get together, like this recorded interview, you and I get together and we talk about it, and we just kind of, let your thoughts flow. And I think you've answered my next question. I wanted to ask you about what were the obstacles that you faced in your journey, and how did you overcome them? So is there anything else that's coming to mind?
And for me it was always just a matter of getting back in contact with you to get the reassurance, so just to not disappear and hide from the task at hand. And you were just so encouraging to keep me on track, because that was an obstacle for me, was just to go off track and to not want to do it, but knowing that I had to do it, just facing, and that's one of my chapters, is the chapter of the gift of vulnerability, and knowing that I had to show that side as well. I had to talk about the darkness as well, to give people hope for the light. And nobody wants to do that. So, that was an obstacle, was just facing those head on and really diving deep, so that I could be of service to others.
Sure. Very well said, because that's the thing that each one of us does with our coaches. Like, as much as we want to get back in touch with the coach, we want to hide as well, because we're feeling like I'm not good enough for them. I'm not good enough to meet their expectations, or I'm letting them down and all those things. But for any of you listening to this, guys, the message is that if you're stuck, you have to reach out, because otherwise how can I know, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So what else? Is there any key message that you want to share?
No, just, that initial interview, I think that validation of your story and that initial interview is just so important to get out what you're feeling first before you start creating all the other scenarios in your head. I just found that initial talk with you just so great, because it just gave me clarity, rather than just spending months and months and months coming up with something in your head, and just someone with experience who's helped so many people write their story, that you can see through, and you can see what we can't, so you can see the message straight away, and you can hear that. And that was just such a great way to start the process. Just such a wonderful learning curve. Like, I learned so much.
Actually, I'm just gonna throw in a bit of a model here, because I just, like, half an hour ago, I finished a training on spiral dynamics on my Facebook page, and I'm just gonna, like, for those of you who have missed it and are gonna watch this, So there are levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in spiral dynamics. And what you mentioned, Rachel, just now is the energy at level 3, where, you try to rebel, but it's an unhealthy rebel. It's not serving you. You're thinking, I'm going to figure this thing out by myself. I'm just going to keep hustling like crazy, keep creating ideas, models after models in my head. And I'm going to figure it out, but I don't know how. Rather than, reaching out to someone in level 4 who has a system. So it's all transitions, but like you could be at your level 3 and you could keep playing the scenarios in your head, like how your book would possibly look like, without taking action for another year. Or you could say, okay, you know what, you have a system, just give it to me, I'm going to follow that system and bring it to materialize it, basically.
Yeah.
So I know we have achieved some great wins with your book, and like huge congrats for that. Can you share with us what you have already achieved in terms of community, book sales, visibility, all the things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think the advantage of building that community alongside whilst you're writing, and not wait for, that's, the biggest tip I can give with having such a successful launch, is letting people know and setting that deadline for yourself, and letting people know that it's coming, and what you're talking about in there, and don't wait for it to be finished to say, here's my book now.
Yeah.
So we had a really successful launch here on the Sunshine Coast with
Yeah.
my book.
Yes.
There it is, my beautiful cover. That was my favourite, and tedious part for you, I'm sure, and the design team, back and forth, but I'm so happy, and I
think we had multiple iterations of the book cover. But so Rachel's brief started like, she's a very by the beach kind of person. Ocean is her key word, her key place. And that she had some ideas, and we wanted to show a box, but then we realized, no, just the cover, on the ribbon on the cover would be great and all that. But it does. What can I say? Finally, we do get there, like to your 100% satisfaction. So
yeah, absolutely. And so the launch, Sunshine Coast, was on the 4th of June. We I had almost 80 people at that launch party, which was just fabulous, and it was a ticketed event, so everyone walked away with a copy of the book, and that was so important to me.
And it wasn't it was like a premiumly priced event, and it went really well. It was like a $50 ticket, maybe.
Yeah, 45 up here for the Sunshine Coast, and catered, and we had lucky door prizes and things. And 2 weeks later in Brisbane, a similar event for almost 50 people. So within 2 weeks, I had 120 books out into the world, and that was so encouraging. And to have some of those people contact me back and ask to purchase more for friends. And that was just the best feeling, because they obviously had been through some of the material and wanted to gift it to someone else. They were from people that I didn't know. So from there we're up on Amazon. I've had Amazon sales, and nearly onto my 3rd print run here for Australia.
Yes, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in terms of your business, or your kind of your next level growth, what's happening now for you?
Yes, so we're just putting together, I'm working with another lady here on the coast who runs a Stories of Hope events each week, and she wrote a book last year too, and we're running a series of workshops here on the coast. Titled The Grief Circle. So they're kicking off in the next few weeks. And from there, I'm going to nut some of that out too onto online courses and workshops with my community in private groups. And by the end of the year, a 2-day retreat here on the coast. So that's on the cards for the next 6 months.
Awesome. And for all your courses and retreats and workshops, can I ask you where's the content coming from?
The content from my book. Yeah,
So that's
that's
the
right.
added bonus, right? Like you've got the structure, and all you have to do is either give a summarized version of it or
Mhm.
give an in-depth version of it. But basically, you don't have to like rack your brains again to
Mhm.
come up with a structure, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah, the hard work's been done.
hard work's been done. Yes. Alrighty. Rachel, it has been so good. Like I know we can keep this conversation going forever, but in signing off, is there something you would like to tell the people who are watching this interview?
Yeah, sure. Just if you are thinking about starting or you've wanted to start for such a long time and you've got that book in your heart, then you just need to just have a chat with Shilpa. Just jump on a call and get your idea
Yeah.
out of your heart and out of your head, and you'll feel so much lighter just even having that conversation first, just to get that validation and just hearing some feedback about your idea and your business, and then from then on the process is just baby steps. It just follows one after the other. You'll be surprised how quickly it goes, and the feeling of having that book in your hand when you receive it, there's nothing like
I know, I
it.
know. Yeah, well said. And I would just like to reiterate the thing that you said a little bit ago about keep sharing your journey as you write your book, rather than, because the world is busy going about with their business, and they're not even anticipating your book. They have no idea you're coming, and then suddenly you're like, hey guys, give me the attention, can I have your attention? They're like, no, we're busy with stuff.
Yeah.
But then if you just keep them informed, it works on so many levels because it gives them the significance. You think of them as worthy enough to share your progress with them, and it helps them keep you accountable. And then that was a hell yes. And yeah, so well said. And the session that Rachel talked about, there are many names. I call it 100 book maps. I'm on the 10th of 100 book maps I've done, which I want to do by the end of this year. Or it might be a book map or a book business blueprint session. They're basically one and the same thing. It's basically, whatever word entices you guys, I'm putting it out there so you can finally take that first step on clarifying your message and clarifying your vision, so you and I can create together what's possible for you. Anyway,
Just do it.
yes, let's do it. So thank you so much, Rachel, for coming today. And yeah, it has been one of the special books very close to my heart, and your journey too. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks so much, Shilpa. And if anyone wants to find my details, Gifts from Grief on Facebook,
Please.
for anything that's upcoming.
Yes, so I'm gonna just go a little bit in depth. So, Gifts from Grief is her hashtag on Facebook and Instagram. I think you're very popular on Instagram, so do follow her journey, connect with her. And I have to mention, I myself benefited from her work. Like, I was so untouched by grief. Rachel, you know this, right? I was very naive in that area, and like very blessed by life. Have not lost a very loved one, dear one, near one for a long time, until one of my very dear friends and my business coach just passed away. And I was in the middle of things when we were doing our interview. And I was like, oh my God, she's talking to me. So, yes, it is something that each one of us needs or will need at some point in time. So, thank you for your work, Rachel.
Thank you, Shilpa. Thanks so much for having me.
Pleasure. Okay, bye.
Bye.